Joe, good to see you. How you doing? Evening. How you been? JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Pablo, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Jeff, good to see you as well. Evening. How you been? T, good to see you as well. Hello, Miles. How are you? I'm doing great. T, how you been? How's things? Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? G, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Scott, I still got to reply back to a direct message I haven't forgotten. After the live, I really did reply back to your messages. I hope that you had a good day. It was a good day, Scott. How's your day, brother? Hi, Miles. How's things? Artistic, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Mighty, it was good. How's your day? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? How's things? Free and Feather. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. How you doing, Free and Feather? How you been? Okay. Let's do Shelly. Morning. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good, thanks, Miles. The markets are not too good. The markets are going to get better, to be fairly honest, because we have received news that, for example, the EU has decided to slow down in terms of their tariff policies against the US, which is a good sign. The EU slowing down. It's also going to be China who's going to slow down next. All the countries that are going to get tariffed essentially by the United States are already being tariffs. They're all going to be slowing down because none of them want to trade with the US as much as they pretend on the news that they do. So the tariff situation is slowing down pretty much. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Orphan, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles. How are you feeling today? I'm doing great, Scott. Orphan, good to see you. How you doing? I seen something about XRP and Swift. Yes. I need to confirm that news because I still haven't seen it, the documentations myself. Dennis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hey, what's up, brother Miles and CMF Bill? Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? I'm glad you recovered from your illness last weekend. Let's go, Scott. XRP news. Yes, towards the end. We are ready. Let's go, Denise and Scott. Let's go. So let's do the intro of tonight's live, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be going through on tonight's live. I'll give you the gist, essentially, the breakdown. So, good evening, Miles, and the rest of the CMF family. Funky brother, good to see you. How you doing? Welcome to the CMF Live if you're watching this for the first time ever. The CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. I go by the persona Crypto Mouse. I'm the host of this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards. On this live, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And I just want to take a second to say thank you so much to everyone from the CMF and everyone else that's watching us new who has, because I'm getting notifications right now. Thanks so much to everyone that's retweeting this live on X. If you're watching us on X, thanks so much to everyone that's retweeting this live on X, who's putting a comment on X outside the live video, who's liking each other's comments, hashtagging XRP on me, and essentially retweeting in general. And thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching this live right now as well, who's liking the videos also. So let's do a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about tonight's live. So on tonight's live, we're going to be talking about, by the way, episode 258 we're on right now, which is incredible. So on tonight's live, we're going to be talking about Missouri, essentially being the next American state to be applying for a Bitcoin reserve or a crypto reserve. Then we're going to be talking about Coinbase on tonight's live regarding essentially a New York judge has came out with a verdict on the Coinbase case versus the SEC. Then we're also going to be going through Brian Armstrong news regarding the CEO of essentially Coinbase in terms of him discussing how Coinbase can become a United States bank somewhere down the line. Then we're going to be going through the SEC news in terms of the SEC is cleaning up whatever Gary Gensler has left behind still. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding a decentralized AI opportunity. Apparently one incredibly wealthy CEO of a company has came out and said that AI is much more bigger than Bitcoin is. Not the entire crypto space, but just Bitcoin. Then we're going to be talking about tonight's live regarding the matters of European Union in terms of their trade wars with the US for tariffs. Then we're going to go through news regarding the CFTC on tonight's live, regarding the CFTC announcing a crypto industry forum. They've actually invited quite a lot of directors and CEOs and executive members from blockchain companies, one of them being Ripple, the CFTC has invited. Then we're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding BlackRock in terms of them essentially boosting their investments in strategy, which is, MicroStrategy in other words. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Poland. Poland is the next European country to pretty much reject a Bitcoin reserve idea. And they're most likely going to go towards a stockpile cryptocurrency portfolio rather than just a Bitcoin reserve. Then we're going to be talking about how the CFTC is bringing essentially crypto CEOs together for a massive launch. We're also going to be talking about Waller on tonight's live as well. Waller is the Federal Reserve governor who is essentially came out and talked about the Euro's digital essentially currency, the stable coin for the US digital dollars, CBDC. So we're going to go through that on tonight's live as well. We're also going to be talking about some XRP news towards the end of the live regarding the SIBO and essentially giving you a breakdown of what to come for XRP. Then we're going to be talking about Citibank essentially and XRP. And then we're going to be talking about some other Ripple news as well. So before we go through any of these news topics, let's go inside the comment section first. But the first news we are going to be covering after the comment section is regarding Missouri pretty much being the next state in America to give a green light to some sort of a Bitcoin or stockpile, crypto stockpile reserve. But before we go for the first news, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it outside the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the first news, which is regarding Missouri. Even Miles of CMF, good to see you all, Manny. How you doing? What you think they were waiting for until they announced the XRP case is over? It's obviously over, but they're not saying it. It's true. The XRP case is technically over, but they don't want to announce it for the time being. It's something to do with most likely some sort of a timeline. Because whenever it comes to anything to do with the corporate sector, it's always got to do with some specific type of timeline. But then again, it is a legitimate case, so it needs to go through the legitimate process for it to be dismissed or settled. So that is also the case as well. But it's going to be very soon anyways. There's no point of this case ever being carried on in any sort of a way. So especially now that Ripple has been invited by the CFTC to have a sit down as well. So very soon should be over. Johnny, how you doing? Hi, sir. When do you expect XRP to reach high price point? When do I expect XRP to reach high price point? Well, the case needs to be dismissed or settled, first of all. Second, with regulations, and third will be the adoption rate for XRP. So after that, the sky's the limit. Even Miles and family, Ian, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Woodhouse, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Happy Pisces, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Miles, I think XDC, HBAR, and XLM will do well this year. What is your opinion? I agree 100%. XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR will do incredibly this year, in my point of view as well. Good evening, Miles and CMF Talk. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles. How you doing, Pedro? How's things? Welcome to the CMF Live. Hello, Miles and CMF Comatose. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? So let's go for the first news on tonight's live, which is regarding Missouri. Essentially being the next state in America to go for an idea like a Bitcoin reserve. Here it is. Missouri introduces the bill to establish a Bitcoin reserve. Missouri is joining the trend of U.S. states embracing Bitcoin by introducing its own Bitcoin reserve bill, known as the House Bill 1217. Missouri representatives Ben introduced the bill, essentially seeking to establish a Bitcoin streak reserve fund that would allow the state, essentially state treasurer, to invest in and hold Bitcoin. The bill filed essentially today positions Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation and aims to diversify the state's financial holdings. The bill creates the Bitcoin streak reserve fund and allows the state treasurer to receive, invest, and hold Bitcoin under a certain circumstance, according to the bill's summary. Under the proposed legislation, the Missouri treasurer would have the authority essentially to receive Bitcoin through investments, gifts, or donations from government entities and residents. The bill also mandates that all state and local government essentially agencies accept cryptocurrencies for taxes, fees, and fines, with essentially payers covering transaction costs. Additionally, Bitcoin essentially acquired under this law would be held for a minimum of 5 years before it is sold. And Missouri moves essentially follows a growing trend among US states exploring Bitcoin's adoption. Utah is the only American state that hasn't applied for a Bitcoin reserve, but has applied for a crypto reserve instead, while as some American states that have got involved inside this crypto sector, they've all applied for a Bitcoin reserve. Utah is the only one that has actually just applied for a crypto reserve, which is a much more smarter idea, to be fairly honest. And Utah is the only state that has progressed further along compared to the other bills from different states. So Missouri essentially being the next state to have applied for this. Now, there are at least 16 states that are currently considering a similar Bitcoin reserve initiative or a crypto reserve initiative. Ohio, Wyoming, New Hampshire. If passed, Missouri's Bitcoin Essential Reserve Fund would take effect on August 28th, 2025, unless further legislation changes occur and it stops them from having some sort of Bitcoin reserve. So Missouri is the next United States state to have a Bitcoin reserve or a crypto reserve. Let's see how things go. But so far, there are about 16 American states right now that have applied for crypto or Bitcoin reserve. Now, the next news we're going to be talking about tonight's live is regarding Coinbase versus SEC. So it's a case that's been going on for a very long time, just like the Ripple case has, or the Kraken case, or the Crypto.com case, or the Binance case when it comes to the SEC. Now, Coinbase essentially previously said to the judge that they're not selling securities or unregistered securities in any sort of a way. And that case was going on when Gary Gensler was still in position of the SEC being a chairman. Now that Gary Gensler is gone, things should have cooled off. The judge, however, is in some sort of a way leaning into towards the SEC's previous claims when it comes to Coinbase. So here it is. When it comes to the SEC, Coinbase must face customer lawsuit in New York. A U.S. judge has ruled that the crypto exchange Coinbase must face a class action lawsuit filed by customers in New York. Now, this is adding up on the SEC case, and retainers have reported on this. The lawsuit alleges that Coinbase illegally sold securities and that it essentially acted as a direct seller, as a middleman in this position. In the ruling delivered today, the U.S. District Judge Paul rejected Coinbase's argument that essentially it is not a statutory seller under U.S. federal security laws. The exchange also contended that it never transferred the title of the 79 tokens listed in the lawsuit, which essentially customers traded on. However, the judge pointed out that the argument that the customers on Coinbase transact solely with Coinbase itself. According to the ruling, this acquisition leads to the conclusion that the US-based crypto exchange was a seller. In a statement to retainers, Coinbase retreated that it does not list, offer, or sell securities. The exchange plans to fight and to dismiss other claims in this case also. And that the latest development comes more than 9 months after a court decision in April in 2024 reviewed that aspects of the case that had previously been dismissed by a judge, while the judge had essentially squashed the lawsuit in February 2023. An order from the Second U.S. Circuit of Appeals in Manhattan in April 2024 allowed certain accusations to stand against Coinbase. Now, in May, essentially 2024, a group of Coinbase customers from California and Florida filed a new lawsuit against Coinbase and CEO Brian Armstrong, alleging that the exchange, in terms of crypto sales, violated their securities laws. You know what extremely random this is? In terms of, you could say, coincidence or coordinated. You see, when Gary Gensler was in charge of the SEC as a chairman, when they were versing Ripple, when the SEC was versing Ripple, randomly, some cases came out of California. And these customers from California decided to sue Ripple because Ripple promised them that XRP was going to go to the moon. And the case was extremely bogus, to be fairly honest. But the case was a few California investors suing Ripple. And this was alongside Ripple being sued by the SEC for selling securities. And randomly, these people in California were suing Ripple for security purposes as well. Now, you fast forward to today, where essentially, Coinbase's case, which is, similar to Ripple being selling securities or whatever, random Californian investors are also suing Coinbase for selling securities. This happened during the SEC case with Coinbase as well. Coincidence? That's why is it the sellers from both cases are all based in California and suing them for securities? Californian investors sued Ripple for security selling. California investors sued Coinbase for security selling. Both of these cases happened at the pretty much exact same time when the case was going on with Gary Gensler suing Coinbase and Ripple. Why is it that the sellers didn't come from Utah? The sellers from Utah that was suing Ripple for selling unregistered securities? Or why is it that the sellers didn't come from Texas? Why is it both of them are all based out of California? I said this a long time ago that both of those cases, this one as well, and the Ripple one, where the random investors that came out of California and sued essentially Ripple for selling securities, and the ones that sued Coinbase for selling securities, it seems a bit odd that both group of investors are based out of California. It's a tactic sometimes used by lawyers, or in this case, Gary Gensler's dirty moves and tricks. But anyways, the lawsuit identified several tokens, including Solana, Polygon, Near Protocol, Decentralized, and Algorand as securities on the Coinbase case. Coinbase, however, maintains that it does not list or sell securities, and that the secondary crypto sales do not meet the criteria to be classified as such. These are like the after effects from Gary Gensler's stupidity. Aside from class action, essentially lawsuits, Coinbase continues to battle a separate lawsuit filed by the US Exchange Commission. The SEC sued Coinbase in June 2023, alleging that essentially the company operated as an unregistered securities exchange. And now that these random people are saying, essentially continuously suing Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, and essentially Coinbase for selling them dreams and promises, the exact same thing the Californian investors were suing Ripple CEO for, essentially Brad and Ripple for selling XRP as dreams and hopes. It's odd. Both of these cases are still carrying on, but do you know what is going to be dropping? Both of these cases will be dropped. The moment the SEC essentially declares the Coinbase case and the Ripple case as dismissal of settlements, both of these cases will be dropped, because the Californian investors that are suing both Ripple and Coinbase, they're both suing them for selling securities. So if Coinbase declares that XRP is not if the SEC dismisses or settles essentially the Ripple case, or the SEC dismisses and settles the Coinbase case, both of these random investor cases should be dropped as well. But it is carrying on for the time being. Now, Brian Armstrong, Coinbase's CEO, more news on him. Coinbase's CEO essentially said that Coinbase can rank as a bank inside the United States, and it can do, to be fairly honest. So here it is. Coinbase would rank the 21st largest US banks, according to Coinbase's CEO. Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, highlighted that the company's growing financial footprint, comparing its holdings to major US banks and brokerages. Brian Armstrong stated that Coinbase now holds approximately $420 billion in customer assets, and that this would make it the 21st largest bank in the US by total assets. If categorized as a brokerage, essentially, Coinbase would rank as the 8th largest asset manager, essentially assets under management. And Brian Armstrong also touched on Coinbase's role in payments, citing that the $30 trillion in stablecoin transactions processed last year, though he essentially acknowledged that it will all not for goods and services, he emphasized that crypto is reshaping traditional finance by merging essentially investments, payments, and lending into one simple platform. The point is, with crypto, the line between these categories is blurring, Armstrong said, and that Coinbase could essentially become some sort of a bank later on. He argued that the traditional separation of banking functions is outdated, and a modern financial system should offer seamless integrations across spending, investing, and yield earning. Armstrong predicted essentially that as more of the global economy shifts to crypto infrastructure, financial systems would become more efficient, lowering transaction costs and increasing economic freedom. So the question pretty much Brian Armstrong is trying to ask is, can essentially Coinbase be a bank later on? And the answer is yes. I said this a long time ago. Not 2024, but in 2023, I said that exchanges can eventually turn into banks. I said that Binance could eventually turn into a bank. I said that Coinbase can eventually turn into a bank, and so on and so on. You fast forward to 2025 now, today, where Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, is saying, we think that Coinbase can turn into a bank because the amount of transactions that we're doing, the amount of assets that we're holding for customers and so on, and that it is something they're leaning towards. So in that sense, I think that's amazing, because Coinbase is going to be a great platform for people to be able to borrow against their assets easily, to use them as collateral to skip on tax. Now, moving off Coinbase's idea of becoming some sort of a bank later on, or they're leaning towards it, to the SEC. The SEC has came out and said that they're still cleaning up Gary Gensler's mess. A lot of people are, essentially saying, they're thinking that the SEC is not moving fast enough because cases aren't being dropped yet, and essentially the regulations still haven't came through. And what the hell is the SEC doing in all this time now that Gary Gensler's left? Why are they not moving fast enough? Well, according to the SEC, they're still cleaning up Gary Gensler's mess inside the SEC and trying to lay in some foundation first. Before we go through this news, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the SEC news, still cleaning up Gary Gensler's mess. So let's see where we were at. We were at here inside the comment section. What do you think of Micro's exchange thing? I've never used the platform, to be fairly honest, regarding Micro's exchange thing. I've never used this. I wouldn't be able to give you a judgment about it with us. I could use it and let you know later, no problem. Good morning, Miles and CMF. Go Spooner, good to see you. How you doing? Woodhouse, good to see you, brother. Good evening, Miles, and how's it going? Callie's going great. How's things with you? Adi says, hi, Miles, and all in the CMF. Hope everyone is cool tonight. Let's go, Adi. How you doing? Orphan says Poland now is thinking about BTC reserves. Poland is actually rejecting BTC reserves, is what's really happening. Poland is thinking about BTC reserves is not the future for them in any sort of a way. And it could be with essentially what the EU has said. So when the Czech Republic bank governor, central bank governor, said that he wants to do a Bitcoin reserve, the EU central bank said no. Czech Republic cannot have a Bitcoin reserve. So then the Czech Republic bank governor went back to the drawing boards, and 24 hours later he comes out and he goes, he wants to create a basket of essentially assets, not just a Bitcoin reserve. And then the EU central bank didn't reject that idea, but they rejected the idea of just a Bitcoin reserve. I think it's more to do with they still don't know who's behind Bitcoin and which agency, or is it just China that's behind Bitcoin, pretty much. I think that's why the EU is still rejecting the idea. Now, hey Miles, hope you're well. Yama, good to see you. How you doing? I'm doing great. Bull market is really frustrating than the bear market. Bull market is really more frustrating, and then the bear market, yeah. Well, this time around is a lot more different, to be fairly honest, because a lot of things in play that we've never had before. So this bull market is going to be incredible. We're still in it, to be fairly honest. It's just extremely manipulated. But also, it's because the volatility that's been caused is due to the tariffs that Trump is imposing on the countries. But it's short-term volatility, and it needs to happen. I'm not against tariffs. I've said this before. I'm for tariffs. I'm for the idea of Trump fixing the world using tariffs. I love the idea that he's doing this, because it needs to be done. And it's better for him to do it now just to get it over with, so every country complies with the United States. Moving forward, essentially, no more tariff situations, no more volatile situations. So this needs to happen now. But a lot more things are different, essentially, this time around. And that it's not just a bull market situation we're going to be in. It's an adoption situation we're going to be in. The main purpose of cryptocurrencies wasn't buy, sell, quick profits. It was about utility. So the more that we're going to go into this regulated space, now that the CFTC is having open meetings and trying to figure out regulations, and so is the SEC with their new crypto task force. So the more regulations we have, the more we're going to go towards utility. The more we go towards utility, certain crypto projects, based on their utility being adopted domestically or internationally, they're not really going to be affected by bear markets because it's difficult then. So the cycles that we've been in for a very long time, which is follow Bitcoin's footsteps until the day Bitcoin dies, it's pretty much come to an end. The more we go towards regulations, the more regulations there is, the more utility there is. If there's more utility, then the cycle of following Bitcoin is going to come to an end completely, because certain crypto projects will be operating 24/7 basis due to their utility. For example, the financial category, let's just take in a sense XRP, for example. If XRP is adopted essentially in an international domestic basis, being used for transactions worldwide, then the idea of a bear market doesn't really affect XRP's price point anymore, because the asset is being used 24/7 to move around payments around the world. So it wouldn't be following Bitcoin's footsteps in any sort of a way. So the thing I'm trying to say is the faster we get to regulations, especially this year, in terms of the crypto task force and everything else, and then you have the Bank of America's CEO in the World Economic Forum stating banks are ready for, crypto. So the closer we get to regulations, the more adoption that happens in terms of the utility of crypto projects. Every project that has a utility basis, the more it gets adopted, the less essentially will be affected by bear markets or Bitcoin's footsteps. So we're, by far on a different ballgame. Grayscale said the exact same thing as well. So did Standard Chartered Bank, so did essentially JP Morgan's analyst Nicholas as well. It's a different ballgame this year and moving forward, essentially, because the more we go into regulations, the more the adoption that happens, the more utility that happens. So you got to consider that fact as well, which a lot of crypto influencers don't talk about, or anyone talks about, to be fair. I'm the only one that's been talking about this for years. What's the difference between Coinbase and Binance is selling the SEC? Nicholas, good to see you. How you doing? And what's the difference between? Oh, Lena, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Lena. T says, what's the difference between Coinbase and Binance is selling crypto, SEC saying their securities? There's no difference between Binance and Coinbase in terms of their cases. Technically, they presume, well, the last administration said that they're both selling securities, unregistered securities as well. So there's no differences between their cases. They're both selling securities. But in the Coinbase case, there's certain crypto projects, and the Binance ones, there's certain crypto projects. Some of them have similarities in crypto projects, but some of them are different. Welcome to the world with lending and borrowing. Let's go, come on. I've got my Tangent now, so looking at getting it on the sale, and Tangent recommends Micro for buying XRP. Oh, that's Micro. Yeah, you can use that. I think there's another one as well you can use. What else? After the live, I'll let you know. After the live, I'll let you know which one is better to use through Tangent if you want to buy crypto assets, because I'm registered one of them as well. BTC is getting overused, I think. Yes, I think also. A lot of some, I wouldn't say a lot, but I would say some Bitcoin maxis are also coming to the conclusion that maybe Bitcoin is not the future and other crypto assets are. Some Bitcoin maxis are slowly coming to that conclusion, but they don't want to admit to it. We also had, Elon Musk stating that Bitcoin isn't as decentralized as everybody thinks. A Chinese essentially mining firm got flooded, and Bitcoin's hash rate dropped by 35%. That doesn't really sound decentralized. Also, going on something that I said a long time ago, I said that 5 mega corporations control Bitcoin's mining, and they're on the public market, one of them being Maro Digitals. And Maro Holdings Digital is, the majority of their shares is held by Goldman Sachs and essentially BlackRock. So that doesn't really sound decentralized either, to be fairly honest. If Bitcoin's network is fixated on 5 big mega corporations that are Bitcoin mining and, essentially being the operator behind it, and behind them is BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, that don't really sound decentralized in any sort of ways. Far from it, to be fairly honest. But again, Bitcoin maxis don't want to admit this to certain things. But yeah, Lena says, I noticed all my comments that I previously left on YouTube videos were deleted. Not sure why. I've added some back. Oh, Lena, I'm not sure why that happened either. I'll be honest. I'll look into it, why that happened. And someone told me to sell my XRP at 250. I said no. They are probably thinking they were right selling at 250. We will see. No, you can always take out profits whenever you want, but if you're in it for the long haul, then you're in for the long haul. So you're good. Don't worry. Will Ripple make BTC cheaper and faster to use, Miles? Will Ripple make BTC faster and cheaper? Only if Bitcoin decides to operate on the XRP ledger, then maybe Bitcoin can become faster and cheaper. But why fix something that's broken when you can instead use something that is already fixed? So, you can work on Bitcoin's network to make it faster and cheaper if you really wanted to. But then what's the point of spending all that energy and money and time on when you can just use the XRP ledger, which is faster, cheaper, and more secure? So I don't really see the point of, look, Bitcoin is, the things that everyone knows about Bitcoin till this day. And again, Bitcoin maxis don't want to admit the facts sometimes. Is it's slow and expensive. That's guaranteed. Bitcoin is slow and expensive. There's no doubt about it. And if you've been inside the crypto space for the longest time, you know what I'm talking about when I say slow and expensive. Doing a small transaction on Bitcoin could take an hour and 30 minutes, which makes ridiculously no sense. Especially, if we're saying this is the future of payments, because I can make a bank transfer within seconds into my friend's account or into a business account in the United Kingdom. But then, if the future of payments is Bitcoin, and it takes an hour and 30 minutes for the payment to get there, and if it gets there, essentially, if it's halted because it's congested network or something, then it's not really the future of payments. But I can use XRP and do in milliseconds as well around the world. which I can't do that with my United Kingdom bank. If I want to send it, essentially to a different country, then that's a bigger issue. With XRP, I can send it from here to, Hong Kong if I wanted to, and it'll be there in seconds. So what I'm trying to say is there a point of fixing Bitcoin to make it cheaper and faster when you can just use an alternative network that is already cheaper and faster? But can Ripple fix it? Based on your question, yes, Ripple can if they wanted to. But there's a lot of, agreements that need to be made for it to happen. Mega, let's go. I'm a big Trump fan as well. For someone that put Mega, the person that put Mega inside the comment section, I'm a big Trump fan. I always said, thank God Trump won, because imagine if Kamala Harris won, we would have all been pretty much doomed if Kamala Harris won. So I always said, thank God Trump won. Hey Miles, I brought all the coins that I could afford, and if there's others have done so also, best to go fishing, get a hobby, and hold on for 6 of them. Let's go, Mickey. Great, honestly, for building a portfolio. Absolutely amazing, Mickey. Now, while you do go fishing, still tune into the lives. SEC is what we're going to talk about next. So the biggest question is on everyone's minds is the SEC. Why is it not moving fast enough? Well, the SEC claims that they're still cleaning up Gary Gensler's mess right now. So here it is. While the markets waited on the White House crypto Caesar David Sachs to pump their bags, the week's biggest story slipped beneath the essentially radar. Rather than announcing plans for a strict Bitcoin reserve, the Republicans simply retreated plans to convene more essentially committees to evaluate crypto legislations. The highly anticipated news conference was a nothing burger, and crypto prices tanked in the aftermath. Now, still just before the news conference, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, issued a statement promising a new journey for crypto regulations. According to Peirce, the White House's newly formed crypto task force would provide regulatory clarity for digital assets and essentially reverse the mistakes made under the ex-chairman Gary Gensler. Crucially, the task force is recommending essentially relief packages for crypto projects that were crushed by the hand of the SEC's overreach. These are good statements coming out of Hester Peirce, essentially being in charge of the crypto task force, and essentially stating that the SEC is trying to reverse what Gary Gensler did by using his power and authority crushing crypto companies. This week's Crypto Biz essentially explores the latest statements from the SEC's crypto mom, Hester Peirce. It also looks at Bitwise's 2024 social expectations for Bitcoin and ETF projects. Now, Commissioner Hester Peirce issued a statement saying that the SEC is carving out a new path for digital asset sectors, which includes evaluating the security status of certain assets and potentially providing essentially reliefs for some tokens, and essentially drew the ire of previous SEC administrations. It took us a long time to get into this mess, and it is going to take us some time to get out of it, regarding what Gary Gensler has caused. And President Donald Trump's newly essentially created crypto task force is recommending commission action to provide temporary perspective and relief for coin offerings and token offerings under certain conditions, said Hester Peirce. Hester Peirce, often referred to as the crypto mom by the blockchain industry, said the status of crypto assets under the securities laws is fundamental to resolving many other questions. The task force is working hard to examine different types of crypto assets moving forward. So, if you're wondering what the hell is the SEC doing so far about this whole crypto space, are they bringing out the regulations? Are they dropping off the cases? What's happening with the SEC? Well, according to the SEC, they're still trying to fix Gary Gensler's mess because it's quite a big one. And we have seen some movements regarding the SEC cleaning essentially the mess that Gary Gensler has left behind. The SEC got rid of 50 lawyers because they said they're no longer going to be pursuing the idea of suing crypto companies. So they don't need to have that many commissioners on board that are all lawyers. So they fired 50 lawyers. They removed their head, essentially, lawyer on the Ripple case and Coinbase case, and they created a crypto task force overnight. They did multiple meetings so far talking about the regulation market space and also stating that this is the beginning of a crypto journey, is what Hester Peirce said. So far, it's all been positive, to be fairly honest. The only thing that we need next from the SEC is for the cases to be dropped, essentially, by the SEC, and then we're pretty much good to go, which it's not that far off. Now, a CEO and a mega essentially investor has came forward and said something that Bitcoin maxis will not be happy about. And this is what essentially he said. Decentralized AI opportunities is bigger than Bitcoin, says the DCG Barry Silbert. Before we go through this, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go to the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news, which is regarding AI is bigger than Bitcoin. Just Bitcoin, not the entire cryptocurrency market space, just Bitcoin. AI is bigger than Bitcoin, according to essentially the DCG's Barry Silbert. Yeah, let's go to the comment section first. So we were at JP. JP said, I brought the eggs the other day with BTC. It took me 4 to get out of the checkout. Okay, thanks, Miles. No problem, Ian, anytime. I've heard much about a token called XDC. What do you mention about this token and its potential in this year and beyond? Johnny, what I would say essentially about XDC is that it's an incredible project. They've done multiple testings on XDC essentially through R3 Corda, and R3 Corda is being a part of the Bank of International Settlements, the International Money Fund, essentially the International Monetary Fund projects as well. R3 Corda has been tested in quite a lot of centralized banks, private banks, public banks, and also some private sectors as well regarding institutions. But in general, XDC is a top-notch project. Top 3 projects by a mile, I would say XDC's in. So incredible project to look at. If you're somebody that's into XRP because of the financial status it brings to the table, or XLM because of the same scenario, financial status, then you need to be looking into XDC, because those 3 are just going to change the game forever. And then number 4, HBAR will change the game as well forever. But the list goes on. But the 3 X's, XRP, XLM, XDC, they're going to change the world as we know it in the financial game. So definitely a project looking into, is what I would say, Johnny. The SEC, John says the SEC can't make any rulings until Paul Atkins is in. The acting chair can't make any final rulings. It's true. The acting chair cannot make any essentially any sort of final rulings. It's very true. But he can essentially put the bill. He can put. So the SEC created something where Congress has to give the green light to. So the Congress would give the green light to, senators would give the green light to the SEC from now on if they want to pursue any sort of big case movements. So the acting chairman, Paul, can put it forward that he wants to drop essentially these cases, dismiss and settle these cases, and then it can happen. Obviously, if you have an actual chairman that's not an acting one like Paul Atkins, then yes, then that will be much more easier to drop any sort of cases regarding this manner. But he can still do some movements with the backings of Congress members. But a actual chairman will obviously have a lot more power to do certain things. But even with a real chairman, not an acting chairman, but an actual essentially chairman, there's still that rule in place that's coming in where Congress will have a say in them major movements essentially, which is all going to be positive anyways. But yeah, Ian says, just thought we could give BTC a sense of purpose in the new world. Fair enough, giving essentially BTC a sense of purpose in the real world, in the new world that we're going to be living in. Why not? I mean, BTC can coexist as long as later on we don't find out BTC was created by China. Because everybody assumes Bitcoin is created by the CIA, which is the longest essentially rumor for the crypto spaces. Bitcoin is created by the CIA. But the day that we find out Bitcoin is created by China is the day that Donald Trump is going to deport Bitcoin back to China. I'll be very honest. So let's find out who. I think that's where the issue is. If they find out who created it, it'll be better for them, because then they know what category to put it in and how far they want to take it. But if they find out one day that Bitcoin was created by China, Donald Trump will just deport Bitcoin back to China. If we find out it wasn't created by the Central Intelligence, and instead it was essentially China's Central Intelligence that created it. Now, that's the only issue with Bitcoin, the creation part of who created it. I've just checked essentially material from Tangent. It says that they have restricted transactions due to regulatory changes in the UK. Okay. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to the platform that I pretty much would use for Tangent. I'll send it to you after the live with us, no problem, brother. Evening, Miles and CMF. Pierce, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Ian, let's go. Decentralized AI opportunities. On the topic of Bitcoin, decentralized AI opportunities. The DCG Barry Silbert says that AI is bigger than Bitcoin. Now, he didn't say it's bigger than the entire crypto market space, just bigger than Bitcoin, full stop. So the crypto investment, essentially magnate Barry Silbert, is betting big on decentralized AI, calling it the next big era of crypto that could be bigger than even Bitcoin itself. In a letter to shareholders of his crypto, essentially digital currency group, Silbert went essentially long on the DAI, the crypto industry's efforts to fuse AI essentially inventions with blockchain tech. He believes the tech mashup may essentially pay better dividends for humanity than the closed-off systems being developed by OpenAI and other essentially giants. We're moving from the digital ownership of assets to decentralized ownership of intelligence and essentially availability of vast decentralized computing resources, Silbert essentially wrote in the Q4 letter reviewed by CoinDesk. The setup remained that Silbert of Bitcoin, the best known and by far biggest cryptocurrency, the one where he first made his first crypto fortune, but instead of a money revolution, DAI could be heard as a power of revolution within the crypto as the mechanism to disrupt ownership of and the governance over powerful AI models. DCG currently thinks so that the company has already invested $105 million into over a dozen DAI projects, and we're excited to ramp this up in 2025. So this guy is putting his money where his mouth is. I mean, he's invested up to $105 million so far into AI, blockchain, essentially companies. He highlighted that the DCJ's investments in Bitsonar, a crypto network that specializes in machine learning and essentially AI applications, as the portfolio company closest to escape velocity. Bitsonar TAO token has many similarities to Bitcoin, he wrote. Notably, TAO's essentially market cap is $2.7 billion, a rounding error against Bitcoin's nearly $2 trillion essentially valuation. And DCG plans to invest mightily in the supporting essentially Bitsonar's ecosystem. Silbert essentially pointed out that in November it spun up a company called Yama that essentially Bitsonar's infrastructure projects is based on, and that Grayscale, another DCG company, now offers investment products and exposures to TAO as well. Silbert essentially Q4 letter capped a year of rebuilding on DCG after a long period of essentially spawned by FTX implosions, which essentially floored its lending businesses. Genesis DCG is also a former owner of CoinDesk, having sold to a bullish essentially in late 2023. All five essentially DCG wings had successful 2024, he said, and the discipline required over the last couple of years has resulted in enhanced infrastructure and more mature processes, improved governance, and strong organization focused on executing our growth initiatives, Silbert wrote. Look, the thing essentially I would say is AI blockchain the next big thing? Now, before we get to the next big thing inside the crypto space, we need to do what's in front of us, which is money. The number one category inside the blockchain space is not AI, as I said previously. It's not, for now. The number one category essentially inside the crypto space is not the gaming space, it's not the Web3 space, it's not the data space, it's not the DPINs and DSINs and DAIs or whatever D there is. That's not the number one category. The number one category inside the crypto space is finance, money going digital. The thing that makes the world spin. The thing that makes the world spin is not data, essentially. It's not Web3 or Web2, essentially. It's not gaming or whatever. Even though they are massive market spaces, the gaming industry is massive. It's a $1 billion market space. You know, the AI space is a $1 billion essentially market space as well, and Web3. So they're all $1 billion market spaces, no doubt about them. But for the financial category is definitely the number one category inside the crypto space by a mile. Money going digital is number one. So if anybody tells you otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about, is what I would say, because the financial category is number one. It's just the most simplest question. If you ask anyone, what makes the world spin? The simplest question you could pretty much ask anyone. What makes the world spin? The answer is money. So money going digital, which is the financial category of crypto, is the most important category on this planet. What makes the world spin? Money. So money going digital is the most essentially important category in the crypto space. So XRP, XLM, XDC, H1, so on, the money category is the most important category. That goes digital, and as the world's transactions for domestic and international goes essentially digital, then everything else will follow in suit. Data will be number 2, most important, because we're living in a digital world. Data is going to be incredibly vital. And then Web3 is going to be incredibly vital because in terms of payments we're going to be making essentially with each other, and so on and so on and so on. But it's not the AI category, the gaming category, or so on and so on. It's the money category first. That's the most vital part. That's what makes the world spin. It couldn't be more simple than that. Now, European Union. As I said previously, a few nights ago on this live, I said that nobody will go up against Trump and win. I said that Trump imposing tariffs on these countries needs to be done because he wants to establish his power. And he wants to essentially make in-house products in America. He wants to bring everything back to America. That way, he can also control price points as well. And there will be no more extortion from different companies around the world. But I said, for example, Canada is, Trump imposed tariffs on Canada. Trump imposed tariffs on Mexico, was the first tariffs he did, and 10% on China. I said that the tariffs on Canada didn't work because Canada's already caved in to Trump. And that not only that, but Canadian businesses already caved in. They're thinking about, they're setting up manufacturing in the US. Mexico already caved into Trump's promises. And then we have the China situation where Trump imposes 10% tariffs on China. China imposes 15% tariffs on Trump and not taking Trump's phone call that was scheduled in. And I said that China is showboating essentially, and they have no power, no strength whatsoever. And that every day China is looking weaker and weaker because BRICS fell through yesterday. If you didn't know, the Kremlin came out yesterday, Dmitry from the Kremlin in Russia came out and said that we're not creating some sort of a BRICS unified currency. Nobody wants to go against the US dollars, is what Russia said yesterday, because they fear Trump. This is the authority and power that Trump brings to the table, as I said previously. So Russia has already given up on the whole idea of BRICS, one currency, taking over the dollar. Russia said, nope, that's not happening. So it makes China look weak now, again. It essentially makes China look pathetic again. And then we had the Panama situation before that, where Panama had a contract with China. Trump comes in and goes, nope, that contract needs to be dropped, and Panama needs to be back with the US. So what does Panama do? Drops China and goes with the US and makes a contract with them. Again, it makes China look weak. And China has a massive economic bubble crisis situation going on right now, a massive real estate situation, which means the longer they carry on this charade of essentially temporary power they believe to have against the United States, or Trump in this case, it's going to be worse for China's economy the longer this carries on. And I said that China will give up very soon. And I said that the EU is pretty much next. And any country that goes up against Trump on this tariff battle, thinking they have any sort of authority or strength, thinking that they have any sort of authority or strength, they will lose against the United States, is what I said a few days ago. Well, today it comes out that the EU that was saying, coming out on the news and saying, if Trump comes at us with tariffs, the EU is going to stand strong and go against Donald Trump. We're going to tariff them right back. We're not going to stand here and take it from Trump. Is the temporarily, essentially, charade that essentially, the EU was showing to the world. Well, it comes out today that the EU doesn't want a tariff war with Trump already. I said max these tariff wars will take is 48 hours. Because if it goes beyond 48 hours, it's just damaging to that country's economy. It will have some implications on the US, but not as major as it would on the other country. And any country that tries to go against essentially the United States in a tariff war, their currency starts to get devalued slowly and the US dollars goes higher in price points. That's facts. So the EU decided, you know what? We're not going to be tariffing Trump. We don't want to go into a tariff war anymore with Trump. So they're essentially reducing the tariffs on US cars starting with. And the reason why they're doing that is because they don't want to go in a tariff war with the US. So here it is. The European Union will offer to cut tariffs on US car imports, according to a senior lawmaker. The deal is the step towards avoiding a trade war with the US, because the EU doesn't want a trade war with the US, even though about 48 hours before, the EU said we're standing strong in front of the US, standing strong in front of Trump. But by the looks of it, the EU is weak. As I said, every country is weak against the US. And one by one, the US will remind them why they're weak. So, Bernd Lange, who heads the essentially trade committee in the European Parliament and is familiar with talks on how to de-escalate tensions with the White House, told the Financial Times that the bloc was willing to lower its 10% import tax closer to 2.5% charged by the US. He said, "We can try to have a deal before escalating costs and tariffs," Lange said. The bloc would offer to buy more essentially natural gas and military equipment from the US, plus also look to lower tariffs for cars. By the way, this is the same EU who came on the news and said, "We will stand in front of Trump." And the world was watching, and the world went, "Wow, the EU is so strong." This, the type of people that they came out essentially and said, "We're standing in front of Trump, and we're not going to let Trump bully us into doing what America wants." Well, apparently, that essentially the US has been able to get the EU to do what they want. The EU is already coming out and saying, "We'll buy more American cars from the US. We'll buy more military stuff from the US. We'll buy anything you want from the US. We just don't want essentially a trade war with the US." Remember that previous speech, the strength speech? It's all temporary. As I said, 48 hours max. If they're smart enough, it's 48 hours. If they're dumb enough and they want to, essentially act like a child, then they can carry on beyond 48 hours in a tariff war. But the longer the tariff war situation goes on, the worse it is for that country against the US. The European Union car industry essentially supportive of the tariff move. Officials in essentially Brussels told the Financial Times the sector fears that Trump will make good on his essentially threat to impose tariffs after complaining essentially that Europeans don't buy our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing, and we take everything from them. Additionally, the tariffs would also apply to China and other countries under the WTO, essentially trades, under the WTO rules. We have bound tariffs for cars at the WTO at 10%, but let's say, to show the world we have fair relations, it might be possible to reduce them, essentially Lange said. The EU is going to reduce them to 2.5%. Reports came out today, emerged that Trump is looking to issue essentially tariffs to match those imposed by other nations. The decision continues a potential cycle of retaliation stemming from 25% tariffs issued by the new administration. To this point, the country has tariffed China, Mexico, Canada, the EU, and so on. And furthermore, Lange warned that if talks failed, the EU would be hit back with new weapon, allowing it to target US techs and financial companies. The anti-exception instruments was created after Trump's first term to deal with countries using economic pressure to change domestic policies. Sometimes it's important to have a gun on the table, said Lange. So that's temporary power the EU had against Trump. They were furious. If anybody saw the news regarding the EU, they were furious. Said, how can Trump, essentially bully the EU to doing what they want? The EU will stand against Trump. And there was a lot of people cheering, going, yes, the EU is so strong. They're going to stand in front of the US and Trump. And by the looks of it, the EU already caved. I told you, one by one, these countries will realize that they cannot stand in front of Trump. They cannot stand in front of the power that the US has. Now, also on that subject, South Africa, who is a part of BRICS, also got imposed 100% tax today, 100% tariffs today, because they're a BRICS nation. And that is the reason why Dmitry from the Kremlin yesterday came out and said they're not creating a BRICS currency at all. And they're never going to go against the US dollars, is what Russia said yesterday. They said they will use alternative assets like cryptocurrencies here and there, gold and trade deals and so on, but they're never going to create a currency that goes against the US dollars. It's never going to happen, Russia said. The same BRICS countries that were against the US dollars. It's because it's Trump. Everyone's realizing, hang on a minute, America's back. Now, let's talk about the CFTC. Putting that to one side, and once again, the CFTC has announced that essentially the crypto industry form for a digital asset pilot program. And by the way, I just want to point this out. Regarding the tariff situation, if you're thinking about why is that relatable to cryptocurrencies or the digital market space in general, because tariffs cause essentially a volatile stage, a very short-term volatile stage inside the crypto markets and the stock market. So the longer the tariffs carry on, the more the volatile the market will become. The tariffs come to an end, the market can continue on its path, essentially. That's how it's relatable regarding tariffs to the market space. Now, the CFTC. The CFTC announces the crypto industry's Forum for Digital Assets and pilot programs. The Commodities Futures and Trading Commission, CFTC, has announced a forum for crypto industry CEOs to provide essentially input on the upcoming digital asset pilot program. According to the CFTC, the pilot program will explore tokenized non-cash collateral, which includes stablecoins and similar products. CEOs from stablecoin issuers Circle, centralized exchanges, Coinbase, and Crypto.com, and blockchain firms like Ripple will be attending the forum. So the CFTC is doing a massive, essentially, event, and it's a public event. They've invited Circle CEO, they've invited essentially Ripple CEO, and a few other CEOs to have a discussion. The acting CFTC and chairman, Caroline Pan, said that continued engagement with the crypto industry would pave the way towards fulfilling the Trump administration's pro-crypto promises. The pilot program's essentially recent changes at the CFTC and a collaboration with industry executives reflects a regulatory shift under the new administration. The CFTC named Pam as acting chairman in January 2025 until a permanent appointee is selected by President Donald Trump and confirmed by Congress. Following the appointment, Pam announced essentially a sweeping leadership changes at the regulatory agency, including new directors for the regulator's essentially market oversight and enforcement divisions. The acting chairman of the CFTC announced a series of roundtables with crypto industry leaders and market participants to gather public input on digital asset market structure. Pam said from the CFTC will get back to basics by hosting roundtables that will develop essential robust administrative record with studies, data, and expert essential reports, and public input. A holistic essential approach to evolving market trends will help to establish clear rules of the road and safeguards that will promote U.S. economic growth. And Pam essentially continued, digital asset regulations, prediction markets, and potential conflicts of interest will be some of the topics for the upcoming roundtables. The acting chairman, Pam, said that the agency was ending regulation by enforcement inside the CFTC and choosing to focus on fraud and customer essential protection instead against fraud, which is what the SEC and the CFTC should have done since day one. Protect investors, not sue blockchain companies that did absolutely nothing. As a part of the regulatory pivot, the agency simplified its enforcement task force into two main groups tasked with combating essentially fraud and helping victims of fraudulent schemes, instead of essentially creating one task force just to sue crypto companies. That's no longer about inside the CFTC. And that the financial regulator's newly essentially reorganized division will target two main buckets of fraudulent activity: retail fraud and incidents of complex fraud acts essentially across asset classes. So the CFTC went from essentially suing crypto companies as well under Russell Benham's chairmanship, who also quit at the same time Gary Gensler resigned, to essentially creating a roundtable, inviting Ripple's CEO, inviting Circle's CEO, inviting some other CEOs and executives to have a public discussion, not a closed-door meeting, but a public discussion. The CFTC said, under essentially the Trump administration, we want to be essentially a very transparent essentially agency. We don't want to be a closed-door agency anymore. We don't want to do enforcements by actions anymore. We want to become a very transparent place for essentially the digital space. We want to, bring that innovation in, is what Caroline Pan essentially stating. Pam also stated that Trump chose essentially her to be the next appointee for the acting essentially chairman because of his pro stance on crypto. He wants to bring that pro stance on crypto, which is the same thing that's applying to the SEC right now, which is why these cases need to be dropped, and they're going to be dropped. But now, moving on essentially from the CFTC being a lot more transparent, inviting Ripple's CEO, inviting essentially all these CEOs to have a discussion essentially about the crypto space and bring out those regulations ASAP to get the ball moving inside the United States, to, this is all positive news, to essentially BlackRock news now. Now, before we go through the BlackRock news, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So, I read everybody's questions one by one as well. I don't miss out on anyone, just in case, people want to know their answers to. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the BlackRock news straight after. Let's see where we were inside the comment section. We were at hi from Malaysia, Shakira, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Pierce, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening, how you been? Yuri Miles of CMF. Let's go. Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hello, Miles of CMF. Thank you. What else? Let's go. Do you know what date Paul Atkins is going to be taking over? I don't know the exact date Paul Atkins is going to be taking over the SEC chairmanship. He needs to be voted in first before he does take the chairmanship. But I don't know the exact date. I can find out for you, no problem. I'll let you know inside the CMF. Blockchain and everything else, pretty much. I really hope America fixes up. It's going to, by the looks of it. I mean, Trump has done a lot of things. He's the only politician in America's history, on the world's history, that says it and does it. Trump has done everything he said so far. And there's a lot more he said, but he's doing them one by one, to be fairly honest. And he hasn't settled. Trump has not settled once. He's not rested once. He's been signing executive orders back to back, having communications with world leaders, putting world leaders that go against the United States in their positions, back in their positions to realize that the US is essentially back in charge. He's been doing a lot since he's back in. To be fairly honest, a lot. Evening, Davey, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? JP, let's go. They don't sell anything worth buying. Who wants to buy Chevrolets over German or Japanese cars? Tariff me on JD is about it. Well, the products that America does offer is pretty much everything you see around you. So, regarding Apple products, everybody uses Apple products. Everybody uses Microsoft products. Everybody uses, in the world, it's either you're using Android or iOS. So in that sense, when it comes to tech, America is pretty much leading the charge. And, if they're not doing tariffs, so a lot of things, what I'm trying to say is a lot of things do come from the US. Don't look at just the vehicle side of the US. Look at everything else the US is producing to the world. In terms of military, they're pretty much number one in the rankings. In terms of tech, they're pretty much the number one in the rankings in the world. In terms of vehicles, sure, American vehicles do sell quite a lot at a rapid pace in the United States and in Canada, Mexico, and so on, Latin America, North America, and so on. And in the Middle East, American vehicles sell quite a lot. It's just the Europe side, they don't sell as much. It's mostly because they do tariff them quite a bit for American vehicles to come into the country to keep the prices up. But who knows? Tariffs come lower on American products in terms of vehicles. American vehicles can also be sold in the UK, for example, in the EU, and they are a lot more cheaper than German cars, essentially. In terms of reliability, Japanese take that by a mile. Toyota and Lexus will always take reliability by a mile. But yeah, they do produce quite a lot for the rest of the world. I mean, in terms of tech, pretty much everything around us is American. Sure, it's made in China, but the tech behind it is American. The companies behind it, the foundation. Most definitely back. Let's go, Ian. In terms of the US, yes. Oh, yes. But personally, me, I like American cars. I'll be honest with you. I like American cars a lot. One of my favorite cars of all time is the Ford Mustang 1969. Incredible car. Dodge Charger, I love it as well. But I prefer most of the old school cars than the new ones. But anyways, Tony, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? So, BlackRock. BlackRock boosts stake, a new chapter in financial strategies. If you're wondering whose strategies is MicroStrategies, which has now changed their name to Strategies instead. So, significant developments are unfolding essentially in the financial world. The BlackRock has increased its stake in Strategy, which is MicroStrategy's company, from 0.9% to 5%. BlackRock is increasing its market share in Michael Saylor's company, Strategy, because of how much Bitcoin they do hold currently. While BlackRock maintains these assets as a company, they represent a portion of over $10 trillion in essentially assets. Essentially. They represent a portion of $10 trillion in client assets, highlighting a growing demand for Bitcoin among its clients. The notification regarding essentially BlackRock's shares increase was made under the Schedule 13G filing framework. This filing indicates that notification process that investors must follow what they essentially own more than 5% of their publicly traded companies. The filing is expected to be completed either within 45 days after the year's end or within 10 days essentially after exceeding 10% ownership, reflecting a minor yet essentially notable change in the company's share structure. Not only does BlackRock essentially have a huge crypto stockpile, a huge Bitcoin stockpile, but they're also investing into another company and other companies that do hold certain crypto assets. But MicroStrategy being the #1 corporate essentially holder of Bitcoin, they're trying to essentially open their footprint on that matter. So additionally, STRK, which is a new ticker that's being created by MicroStrategy, well now known as Strategy, referred to as Strategy's preferred stock, has started trading on the NASDAQ. On its first trading day, STR essentially closed with a 2% increase, with trading volume exceeding 650,000. Prior to the morning session, a positive change of 5% was observed, indicating a potential new momentum in market dynamics. Given that filing date is noted as December 31st, 2024, BlackRock's essentially disclosure was essentially were expected within its time frame. The compliance of institutional investors with such filings process is structured to reflect investment intentions rather than control over companies. Financial data continues to serve as an important reference point for those closely monitoring developments in corporate investors and relations. Both developments have shifted market attention towards Strategy's share structure and newly listed securities. The observed increase in transactions may raise questions regarding the overall direction of the sector. Investors have market observers are essentially evaluating whether these developments will lead to more significant impacts on essentially the market's future. And in light of this information, the activity in financial market spaces can be viewed as a potential leading to adjustments in investment strategies, and essentially market actors following these developments may choose to make decisions based on digital data coming out and sources and official announcements. So BlackRock is increasing essentially its footprint inside the Bitcoin space, knowing that they do have the #1 Bitcoin portfolio, you can pretty much say, due to the amount of client investors that they have for their BTC, for their IBTC essentially. They're also investing into MicroStrategy slowly, bit by bit. It seems like they're not slowing down their strategy of going for any company that's based inside the Bitcoin sector for the time being is what BlackRock is doing, to be fairly honest. But yeah, they've just increased their position on MicroStrategy, or Strategy now. So, on the topic of Bitcoin, Poland, another European country, has ruled out the idea of a Bitcoin reserve. The first country that decided to do a Bitcoin reserve in the EU was the Czech Republic. A bank governor, the Central Bank of Czech Republic's governor, came out and said he wants to do a Bitcoin reserve, where within 24 hours, the European Central Bank came out and said, pretty much in the most simplest way, hell no. And the bank governor of the essential Czech Republic, 24 hours later, comes out and goes, we've changed our mind. We don't want to do a Bitcoin reserve. Instead, we want to do a crypto reserve or a digital asset stockpile, some sort of scenario, where it's similar to the US. It's not a Bitcoin reserve. It's a basket of currencies. So Poland is another centralized bank that's just came out and just outright ruled out the idea of a Bitcoin reserve. So here it is. Poland's central bank rules out essentially Bitcoin for reserves. The National Bank of Poland has firmly ruled out the possibility of incorporating Bitcoin into its currency reserves in any sort of a way, citing significant security concerns. The NBP president and Monetary Policy essentially Council chairman Adam emphasized the necessities of an absolute security in essentially reserve assets during a recent press conference. He stated, "We will not consider Bitcoin under any circumstances, as reserves must be absolutely scarce and secure." Currently, the NBP's reserves are essentially prominently held in gold, US dollars, and euros, with other assets playing a very minor role. Adam highlighted the strategic timing of Poland's gold acquisition, noting that their value has significantly increased. And essentially aimed global economic uncertainties, he pointed out to Bitcoin's well-documented volatility and unpredictability as primary reasons for its exclusion from the nation's essential reserves. The NPB's cautious stance on Bitcoin aligns with its historical position in the 2017 statement. The NBP and the Financial Supervision Authority warned of the risk associated with virtual currencies, including potential loss due to theft, lack of guarantees, and high price volatility. They retweeted that virtual currencies are neither issued nor guaranteed by central banks and do not meet the criteria for legal tender. Look, I understand why Poland has decided not to do this when it comes to Bitcoin. Or in their sense, when it comes to a volatile asset like Bitcoin, a lot of people like to claim inside the Bitcoin space that Bitcoin isn't volatile. The Bitcoin maxis will normally tell you this, that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, is what people will tell you inside the crypto space. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. Bitcoin is a digital gold. Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that. And they'll always tell you some imaginary Bitcoin that isn't that is far from reality. Because I've said this previously, and I've said this previously in the past, that the title that Bitcoin is given, it doesn't deserve it. Gold, which is the title that's been given to Bitcoin. Digital gold does not apply to Bitcoin in any sort of way because it doesn't operate like gold in any sort of a way. And the most simplest way to say this is, as I said, is if a war breaks out in two random countries today, Bitcoin is not going to be reacting in a positive way. If China decides to go into war, for example, with Taiwan today, Bitcoin is not going to go up in value. But you know what is? The actual gold, the real gold, the precious metal. Because if essentially China goes into war with Taiwan, or any country goes into war tonight, two random countries around the world just go into war tonight, Bitcoin is not going to go up. It's going to go down with the rest of the market. But you know what is actually going to go up? The actual gold, the precious metal. Gold itself will go up in value. This is why I said Bitcoin still, or yet, doesn't deserve the title of digital gold. Because for an asset to be named digital gold, it must react like digital gold. And unfortunately, Bitcoin does not react like digital gold. If Russia goes into war, for example, with Poland tonight, Bitcoin will go down with the rest of the market space. While as actual gold, the precious metal, will go up with the US dollars. Why? Because they're risk-off assets. They're safe havens. Well, gold is a risk-off asset. The US dollar is just a safe haven. So this is why I say, there's a lot of things around Bitcoin, which is that, people are being lied to. It's not the diamond in the rough that everybody presumes it is. There's a lot of things about it that's wrong. I'm not saying this because I'm some sort of a Bitcoin hater, but I'm saying it because it's facts. It can't have the title, essentially, of Bitcoin. Bitcoin cannot have the title of digital gold because it doesn't react like gold. If two random countries go to war tonight, Russia attacks Spain. Let's say, for example, Russia decides to attack Spain tonight. Bitcoin, whose title is digital gold, will go down. But the actual gold, precious metal gold, will go up. So how can it have the title of digital gold? It doesn't make sense. It's a lie. It's this facade that Bitcoin is living under. So on that topic, I understand where Poland is coming from, because Poland is saying, their central bank doesn't want to hold Bitcoin because it doesn't make sense. They're saying, how can Bitcoin be against inflation? Or how can Bitcoin be, in terms of this digital gold that everyone presumes it is, when it's extremely volatile at that moment in time, which it is. Two random countries go to war right now tonight. Bitcoin is going to be extremely volatile. It'll be all over the place. It wouldn't know what to do. Whereas actual gold will go up in value. Hence why Poland's central bank prefers to hold actual gold rather than that gold. Which comes back to Bitcoin having a lack of utility, because it has no utility basis. At least if Bitcoin had utility, we could say, well, it has utility, Bitcoin, if for example, if Bitcoin actually had a utility, we could have said, well, Bitcoin has utility, at least. That's how it will survive. But it doesn't even have that. All it has is limited supply, which is basically, essentially, easiest way to put it is supply and demand. Sorry about that. Which is basically supply and demand. It's the only thing it has to its name, limited supply. Bitcoin is not good for transactions. It cannot be given the title digital gold because it doesn't react like gold. It brings nothing to the table except limited supply. It's terrible for payments. It's terrible for holding as a safe haven because it doesn't react like a risk-off safe haven. It's terrible in every aspect except limited supply. That's the only thing Bitcoin brings to the table, which that could also be extended. Believe it or not, it's also even stated by BlackRock themselves that, you know, Bitcoin can, their essentially limited supply can also be increased. So there's a lot of things wrong with Bitcoin, which Bitcoin maxis don't want the world to know. But if people just use basic common sense and just looked at the charts of when Russia and Ukraine went to war, what happened to Bitcoin? Did it go up? No, it went down. What happened to actual gold? It went up. When the Middle East had the war situation with Iran and Israel, what happened to Bitcoin? Did it go up? No, it went down. What happened to actual gold? It went up. So how can something be given the title of digital gold when it doesn't react like gold? So I fully understand where Poland is coming from. Now, other crypto assets. Other crypto assets? Sure. They have utility. XRP has utility. XLM has utility. XDC has utility. HBAR has utility. AVAX has utility. And there's a list of crypto assets that have incredible utility, which is why they'll survive and have an immense future ahead of themselves. But unfortunately, utility is what's important here, okay? Utility, not limited supply. Limited supply is not important. Yes, if the asset has 1 quadrillion tokens, then sure, supply matters. But in this case, the tokens that I've named here, they don't have quadrillion supplies. XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR, AVAX, TON, whatever. They don't have quadrillion supplies. So that means supply is not really in the question. Utility is. So on that basis, I fully understand why Poland doesn't want to do a Bitcoin reserve. But instead, Poland will do some sort of a stockpile asset reserve, where they'll invest into companies and startup companies and AI and blockchain in general. But they wouldn't want to go towards holding Bitcoin because it doesn't react properly. So I fully understand where Poland is coming from. And by the way, MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor is an incredibly intelligent man. Incredibly intelligent man, Michael Saylor. Incredibly wealthy man. But Michael Saylor, he's also betting on the idea that the United States government will create a Bitcoin reserve. That's the only thing Michael Saylor is betting on. Michael Saylor is not betting on Bitcoin's technology because it brings nothing to the table. Michael Saylor is betting on the United States government creating a Bitcoin reserve. You know when Michael Saylor's essentially contracts come to an expiry date? 2027. Because if you're wondering to yourself, where is Michael Saylor getting all of this money to keep on buying Bitcoin out of thin air? Well, Michael Saylor is borrowing against it too much. He's borrowing against his own companies, he's creating convertible notes, he's doing a lot of things to get money out. But the issue is all those convertible notes are coming to an end by 2027. Now, Michael Saylor has essentially within his contracts has stated that he can't sell up to 5 years. So within that time frame, the US creates a Bitcoin reserve. Michael Saylor is good. 5 years ends, their contract ends, which means they can sell their Bitcoins. So that is the only thing Michael Saylor is betting on. Michael Saylor is not betting on Bitcoin's technology. As much as he wants to tell people he's betting on Bitcoin's technology, his convertible contracts ends 2027, which means technically, by law, on paper, he can sell all of his Bitcoins by 2027. So he's betting on the idea the US government comes out and goes, we're creating a Bitcoin reserve. MicroStrategy's company goes up in value because they're holding an immense amount of Bitcoin. Their contract in terms of their convertible notes ends by 2027. He's selling all. He can, on paper, legally, he can sell all. So keep that in mind as well regarding MicroStrategy, or strategy now. Because by 2027, all those contracts come to an end. He can sell all of it if he wants. The majority of those contracts come to an end by 2027. So the ones that come to an end by 2027, he can sell all of them. But yeah, that's why I say it's very important when it comes to the crypto space. Utility is what matters. Okay, limited supply doesn't really mean jack squat the more we go into this digital future. Especially from an asset that pretends to be digital gold when it can't react like gold. So as much as, even JP Morgan wants to sell you, BlackRock wants to sell you this story, oh, Bitcoin is digital gold and we believe it's a risk-off asset. We believe. Do you see the words they use? BlackRock never came out once and said, Bitcoin is a risk-off asset. Instead, BlackRock came out and said, we believe Bitcoin is a risk-off asset. The key word being believe, because it's just not. If BlackRock was confident, and the charts showed that, they would have said, Bitcoin is a risk-off asset. Instead, they said, we believe Bitcoin is a risk-off asset. A risk-off asset is gold. It reacts in times when there's uncertainty and it goes up. But Bitcoin goes down. So it's the keywords they use. So they're all betting on BlackRock, essentially MicroStrategy, they're all betting on Trump coming out and saying Bitcoin reserve. The US buys Bitcoin or doesn't buy it, holds there, whatever they have. And it comes to a stage where they can sell. Well, BlackRock can't sell. Their investors can. Depending on BlackRock's side bets for themselves. But the Bitcoin that BlackRock is holding is all to do with their own clients, their ETF clients. So they can't sell. But MicroStrategy can sell. Because they're not really holding for clients. They're raising money to buy more. So that's why I've always said utility, utility, utility. That is the only thing that matters. The more we go into regulations, the more the world goes into regulations, utility is what matters. And unfortunately, Bitcoin brings nothing to the table except limited supply. It can't do payments because an hour and 30 minutes for a transaction, I could do a payment in 5 seconds using my bank account. And then there's the argument about decentralization when it comes to Bitcoin. The entire network is run by corporations. 5 mega corporations that are doing Bitcoin mining. If one of them went down, what happens to Bitcoin's network? Those are all public companies, by the way, that are behind. Majority of shares are held by Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. And a long time ago, those big mining corporations, all 5 of them, were operating in China. And then China banned Bitcoin. They all moved to Texas. But before that, even in China, even Elon Musk essentially noted once that one of the Shenzhen companies flooded in China and Bitcoin's hash rate dropped by 35%. That was when they're operating in China, but now they're all operating in Texas. So there's a lot of things wrong with Bitcoin that a lot of people, the Bitcoin maxis don't want to admit to. But, Michael Saylor and all these people, they're all waiting for that Bitcoin strategy from the US. So price goes up, 2027 comes, MicroStrategy can sell legally. So yeah, I fully understand what Poland is talking about regarding they're not sure if that's the one in any sort of a way because it's too volatile. It cannot be given the title of risk-off asset. It's facts. Davey says, even sees what I do. Let's go back inside the comment section. Let's see what's going on. Stormy, how you doing? I have a black Dodge Charger. Let's go, Stormy. Miles, I've heard quantum computing will replace much of this crypto market. Yes and no. Okay. The topic of quantum computing is very simple. Quantum computing, in the right hands, could be very beneficial for the crypto space. In the wrong hands, it could be very negative for the crypto space. But you got to also understand that at the same time that quantum computing is still being developed by China, it's being developed by the EU, it's being developed by the UK and the US. At the same time that quantum computing is being developed, but so is blockchain. So as they're getting closer and closer to quantum computing, blockchain itself, depending on which platform, they're trying to secure it as much as they can as they progress through. So quantum computing is being built and built and built, but alongside of it, so is blockchain. Blockchain is getting more secure and more secure and more secure. So even if there is release at one point, blockchain can be, resistant to quantum computing. Not all blockchains, some. So XRP, for example, will be resistant. Algo is already resistant according to their own words. XLM will be resistant, XDC will be resistant, because they're all inside the financial categories, and they have to be resistant. But quantum computing in general can be used to advance blockchain. It can be used to advance blockchain, but it can also be used in the wrong hands in a negative way. But at the same time, as I said, quantum computers being built. At the same time, blockchain is getting more secure and more secure. They're working on it. So let's see how that goes. How and why will this be possible or not? We're going on quantum computing. That's how. So why does it tank when something major happens? Not like gold. They don't want to tell you that. Facts. They don't want to tell you that. I had to educate my husband on what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are. All facts. Happy Friday, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Ray. How you doing? No, it's based on supply and demand. It's only worth what someone else is willing to pay for it. There is no physical assets. I'll be honest, the physical assets inside of Bitcoin or inside of crypto projects in general is essentially what's backing the stable coins. So there is something inside of these assets, obviously, in terms of actual value. So it's not just thin air value. There's actual value inside of assets, crypto assets. It's the stable coins that are inside them. So we exchange stable coins. So we exchange, for example, dollars, real fiat dollars, for stable coins. Then we exchange that stable coin for Bitcoin, for example, or whatever asset you want to go for. So what's actually backing that asset is the stable coin, in other words. It's a pair against it. What's backing that stable coin? Fiat, in some cases, is backing it. US Treasury bonds are backing it. US Treasury yields are backing it. So, for example, USDT, they claim to have a lot of US Treasury yields and bonds and so on, and fiat and gold and silver. So that's what's backing USDT. And USDT is essentially is a pair against Bitcoin. So that's what's backing Bitcoin in a sense. That's if USDT is really back, if USDT has backings. The stable coins that I would trust is USDC and essentially RLUSD. There's probably a few other ones, but that's the two I would trust. Because I know that Ripple is not lying about their essentially backing, because they're showing monthly audits. Transparent monthly audits is what Ripple is showing for their RLUSD. Something that Tether doesn't even want to show once to the EU. That raises a lot of alarms. But that's what's backing these assets. So it's not that there's nothing backing them, these assets. It's not what people are willing to pay for it. What's actually backing these assets is stable coins. Because you take your paper money, your fiat money, your pounds, euros, or dollars, and you buy a stable coin. And then you take that stable coin and you buy a crypto asset. So what's backing that crypto asset is the stable coin. What's backing the stable coin is, in some cases, treasury bonds, yield bonds, fiat, gold, or silver. So that's what's backing it. What is happening to countries? But that's far from it. But that's what's backing it. But the topic was essentially on the basis of Bitcoin's issue. It's just limited supply. That's the only thing that brings to the table. Utility is the key factor here. What is happening to countries that had started developing CBDCs? They're still developing them. So 98% of centralized banks are still in CBDCs. That's still according to the Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, and a foundation that's based out in the US. They're still in CBDCs. Now, some countries are obviously launching retail and wholesale. The US has decided to slow down on the whole CBDC plan for the time being, but wholesale CBDCs will continue no matter what. And even if CBDCs take a while to come or whatever, XRP will still be playing a medium of payments in between transactions. Because somebody that has euros, for example, in a European bank, if somebody has dollars and they want to do a transaction together, then you still need XRP in the middle to make that transaction happen. So if it's CBDCs or not CBDCs, it still needs to be played as a medium of payment. That's what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, for example, inside the crypto space, they say, we don't need XRP, is what people say. Not me, is what people say. So people say inside the crypto space, people who don't understand what XRP's role is. People say, we don't need XRP if we have stable coins, is what people say. We don't need XRP if we have stable coins. Wrong. Because how banks will be operating essentially is that if a bank in Europe and a bank in America want to do transactions with each other, the European bank will have euro stable coins. Essentially, the European bank will essentially have euros. The American bank will have dollars. And they're not going to go around and exchange their currencies to come back to each other. So they just want to do a transaction together. They just want to do a transaction together, and that's it. This is where XRP plays the middleman role to making that happen, because both banks will be holding XRP to make that transaction happen. Instead of in the past, which is the current system we have right now, which is the European bank will hold some dollars, pounds, and euros, and whatever. The American bank will hold pounds and dollars and euros, and then they can make transactions happen. But instead, XRP will play middleman role in that scenario. So yes, we have stable coins, but no, we still need an XRP transaction in the middle. People need to understand that as well. XRP plays a medium of payments. That's not what you asked, Lena, but I just added something extra on top. But regarding CBDCs, it's still happening. Wholesale CBDCs, retail CBDCs is still happening around the world. As a Bank of International Settlements and International Monetary Fund. I don't understand, if BTC was made in China, then why would the US risk adding it to its crypto reserves? That's too risky. What makes me think they are aware who created it? Thoughts? Interesting question. I'll tell you now. So according to one source, Kraken, everybody's heard of Kraken Exchange. If you haven't, they're quite a major exchange. Kraken Exchange has apparently one of the first wallet transactions from one of the first people around Bitcoin. And they're claiming that they might know who Bitcoin is because it's a centralized exchange, who the founder of Bitcoin is because it's a centralized exchange. So, but we don't know. It could be European, it could be any central intelligence agency around the world, pretty much. Michael Saylor created, but yeah, I agree. That's could be one of the reasons why they're taking too long to approve this whole Bitcoin reserve. I said previously, either they're going to do a Bitcoin reserve. I said the US will either do a Bitcoin reserve, or they'll do a crypto crypto reserve. If they do a Bitcoin reserve, it won't be just a Bitcoin reserve. They'll add other cryptos to it. But anyways, they signed an executive order for stockpile, crypto stockpile, which means it's a basket of cryptocurrencies. Otherwise, they would have mentioned Bitcoin reserve in the EO, essentially, executive order. But yeah, great question, Shelly, regarding the China situation and Bitcoin situation. It could be the reason why they're taking a bit long to approve it. Michael Saylor created a good following and narrative, sold a lot of books. I think he's going to dump it as soon as Tether or before Tether is exposed. Well, he has to if that happens. I know you mentioned that a while ago as well. Yep, let's go be Pisces. 2 random countries are fighting in Africa, Miles. One has a lot of gold and the other that doesn't. Congo and Rwanda are fighting at the moment. Yes, I've heard the news, but they're definitely dimming it down. Regarding Congo and Rwanda, they're definitely dimming it down because there are countries behind Congo and there are countries behind Rwanda because there are a lot of countries in play that want that gold, essentially. More people need to be talking about this. Our youth needs better education investments. Let's go, Wicked. BTC, thank you for the kind words. BTC could be a Trojan horse. It can be. Trump's video buying something with Bitcoin, you could tell he was not impressed, but he did it and it did look great. To get more liberal voters, as mostly liberals are supporting Bitcoin, it seems. It seems like it, yep. You've always said that utility comes first. Facts, because it does by a mile. I'll be honest, utility always comes first by a mile. Now, on the topic of essentially CBDCs, Waller, Governor Waller from the Federal Reserve. Here it is. The US Federal Reserve is exploring tokenized reserves and criticizing essentially a digital euros because the US wants their essentially, US dollars to be number one, and digital euro for them doesn't make any sense. So the Federal Reserve Governor Waller confirmed that the US would continue to participate in Project Argo, a cross-border payment initiative involving the Bank of International Settlements and several central banks and 41 institutions. So if you're wondering, is the US still participating in this whole, cross-border payment section and DLT section, CBDC section? Yes. According to the Federal Reserve Governor Waller, it's confirmed that the US is still continuing in projects from the Bank of International Settlements, and one of them being Project Argo, a cross-border payment initiative involving the Bank of International Settlements and 7 other centralized banks and 41 institutions are involved. It aims to make correspondence banking faster and cheaper using tokenization. While most banks of these central banks will be providing a wholesale CBDC, the United States will potentially allow some existing central banks' reserves to be tokenized. The New York's Innovation Center at the New York Fed is essentially a participant in the project as well. Stepping back, President Trump's executive order to end work on central bank digital currencies was not a surprise. However, The instruction failed to clarify whether the Federal Reserve could continue working on wholesale CBDCs for interbanking payments. This is where essentially it comes into play. I said this as well. I said, even if the US takes its time on a retail CBDC, I said it 2 minutes ago as well, but I said a few days ago as well, but I said, even if the US takes its time on a retail CBDC, a wholesale CBDC is still in play because the rest of the world is still in wholesale CBDCs no matter what. So even if retail CBDC takes a little bit of time, wholesale CBDCs are still in play. And that's what the Federal Reserve is talking about. The governor of the Federal Reserve, he's talking about essentially how wholesale CBDCs is still in play. Even though Trump signed that executive order, it was technically for the retail section, not the wholesale section. So that would not have the same essentially privacy issues as retail CBDCs, because that's wholesale CBDCs, is companies and banks. So there's no more privacy issue situations. Arguably, a wholesale CBDC is only a minor extension of a central bank's existing role. From a legal perspective, there are two ways a central bank can adopt tokenization. One is to legally create a new central bank liability, a wholesale CBDC. The other is to treat all central bank reserves as one liability, but allow some of them to be tokenized. 18 months ago, the Federal Reserve published a paper exploring this point. It distinguished between the payment rails and the settlement assets, a wholesale CBDC or a tokenized reserve. Tokenized reserves represent a same settlement asset but using different payment rails, DLT. Governor Waller's comments on tokenized reserves. Governor Waller confirmed to the Atlantic Council that the Federal Reserve has dropped this whole language. Banks have deposited money at the Federal Reserve for decades. So using a different technology does not create a new central bank liability. Banks can use their reserves to settle in a better way, said Governor Waller. That would essentially be tokenization or platforms or blockchains. You could think about banks trading reserves in more essentially efficient ways. Certainly the correspondence banking systems could be done better. But it doesn't mean we create a new liability. It just essentially how you take the existing liabilities and use technology to move money faster and easier and safer. Now, especially talking about the Project Argo, Governor Waller said the project is really not about creating essentially this wholesale CBDC. It's about taking banks' reserves that we have now and how we can essentially trade them using on platforms to cut out intermediary steps and make correspondent banking systems more efficient. We're not trying to replace anything regarding wholesale CBDCs, he added. We have completely stopped using this word. By the way, the reason why Governor Waller is saying we've stopped using the word wholesale CBDCs in general is because this was mentioned before, where a lot of centralized banks, or in this case, the governor of essentially the Fed, but a lot of centralized banks around the world are changing the word CBDC because they're saying, why do we keep on calling it CBDC? For example, Brazil doesn't call their CBDC CBDC, it calls it DREX. Or Bahrain did a summit, a banking summit, where they invited all bank governors around the world to attend the banking summit in Bahrain. And the governor essentially the governor essentially of Bank of Bahrain, their chairman, got up on stage and said, why do we call it wholesale CBDCs? Why do we call it CBDCs? This is just money. We should stop calling it CBDCs. We should stop giving it a title wholesale CBDCs. It's just money. This is our new money now. So they're trying to erase the word CBDCs or wholesale CBDCs and just call it money, because that's what it is. It's just digital money. It's no longer called CBDC, central bank digital currency. No, they're just going to name it money to give you a better perception, basically. It's the same thing. It's a wholesale CBDC. It's a CBDC, but they're just giving the title money. So that's what he's talking about regarding this matter. So why do we essentially saying we stopped using this word? This is what Governor Waller said from the US. He said, we stopped using this word. It's just, what it is. It's money. Waller's comments on retail CBDC and digital euros. Regarding a retail CBDC, the governor pointed to a speech he made during 2021, where he asked what a problem a CBDC would solve in the United States, which has a highly developed payment system. He has yet to essentially receive a good suggestion. That doesn't mean a CBDC wouldn't be useful in countries with less developed payment systems or where people essentially are unbanked. Asked about the digital euros, Governor Waller described the design as people having bank accounts backed by commercial bank money, or CBDC. One of the biggest reasons the ECB, the European Central Bank, has announced that they are going to do is that they want to directly compete with the private sector to drive down payment costs, he said. And publicly, the European Central Bank has said it wants to bring control over retail payment systems on shows, and especially with Visa and MasterCard currently dominating the stage. The European Central Bank wants to kick out Visa and MasterCard eventually and just have their own payment systems with, in their words, private companies behind it that's created it, but they work with them more better than the way they do with Visa and MasterCard. Now, Governor Waller continued by view, and what we've always done in the US is that the government and the central bank, we do not compete directly with the private sector. That's not our job. We do not use taxpayers' dollars to go out and directly compete with the private sector. That's purely, essentially, a philosophical point. Now, so the European Central Bank is free to do whatever they want, but the argument would not fly inside the US. The European Central Bank is without a doubt, on the idea of central banks in terms of wholesale CBDCs and retail CBDCs, but they're going to change the name as well. It's just going to be called money, because they don't want to give people the perception of wholesale of CBDCs, because the word CBDC has turned into this, well, what it is basically, control. Whenever someone says CBDCs, you instantly think control, no privacy, no freedom is what you instantly think when someone says CBDC. So they're trying to take away the word CBDC and just call it money, because that's what it is. It's just digital money. But in reality, it's CBDC. But again, that's what he was talking about regarding Waller. But regarding America, in terms of the executive order that was signed by Trump, it's the retail CBDC that's on pause, not the wholesale CBDC. Okay, the wholesale CBDCs is still happening inside the United States. This is according to the Fed themselves. The Fed, even after the executive order, has stated that they're still working with the Bank of International Settlements on wholesale CBDCs, but they're no longer calling it wholesale CBDCs, just money or tokenization. That's what they're calling it, just money. So that is what essentially the Federal Reserve Governor Waller said. Now, if you don't know all of that, now you know all of that. What we're going to be talking about next is the CBOL, essentially XRP and Ripple news. Continue forward, there's going to be just a few Ripple news to go through. But before we go through that, let's go start the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news, which is regarding Ripple and XRP. Let's go see where we were, because I read everybody's comments one by one. I don't leave out anyone in any sort of a way. Let's see where we were at. I've seen Michael Saylor's interview in sight. His house, he needs to spend $1 billion on a new door, on a new decor. He can pay me because he has a circa 1992 decor. The two countries, Lena says, the two countries fighting statements in relation to BTC price fluctuations you talked about. Is BTC's price affected if two African countries are fighting? No, because the world isn't affected. So the two countries that are essentially fighting right now in Africa, Rwanda essentially and Congo. So Rwanda and Congo going into a war type of scenario, it isn't really affecting anything because they're dimming it down. So what would cause volatility would be a lot more larger scale war situation. That would cause more volatility. I mean, there's a war pretty much going on in the Middle East every 5 seconds. That doesn't really affect the market space either. But for example, if Iran goes into a war, that would affect the market space. Israel, if it goes, or Russia goes into war, China goes into war, something on a larger scale. But Congo and Rwanda, they're really dimming that down because there's a lot of stake there. There's a lot at play there in terms of countries are, for a reason, trying to keep that war silent. So that's what's happening now. But they're really keeping that one silent because they both want to play at the gold and the diamonds or whatever else those two countries produce. And there's one particular precious metal that's been produced that some countries want it because that precious metal that's coming out of, it's either coming from Congo or it's coming from Rwanda. But one of these countries produce a very precious type of metal that is used in everyone's phones, laptops, tablets, iPads, iMacs, whatever you could think of. There's one type of precious metal that Rwanda or Congo have an incredible amount of, and a lot of countries want it. So there's a reason why those two countries are going to war, and there's a reason why they're keeping that war very silent. Because they don't want any of the, the people who are in the middle of that scenario to be on the news. That's why they're just trying to keep that war very quiet and very silent. And who knows what organizations are behind that? It could be mega corporations that are trying to really keep that silent. Now, thanks, Miles. Great live. Talk to everyone else later. Ghost, want to see you tomorrow, same time as usual. So, Ripple news. Cobalt. Thanks so much for that, Ian. That's what they're looking for, that precious metal. Now, thank you for that, Ian. Colton, Lena, thank you for that as well. There's a lot of precious metals, to be fairly honest, in Rwanda and essentially Congo. But thank you for that, Ian. Thank you for that, Lena. So, SIBO. Everybody's heard the news. XRP, SIBO getting listed, filings. So here's a little small breakdown of it. The SIBO, BZX, files to list XRP's ETFs. The Chicago Board Options Exchange, SIBO, the largest options exchange in the world, submitted multiple 19B4 applications to the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, seeking approval to list and trade spot XRP ETFs issued by Bitwise, 21 Shares Canary, and Wisdom Tree. All four applications rely on Ripple's XRP's partial victory in the years-long essentially legal battle with the SEC on whether XRP should be classified as a security under federal law. The filings essentially, the filing stated that the SIBO believes it is applying for proper legal standards and making a good faith determination that XRP is not under these circumstances and a security under federal law. The SEC has 45 days to review the applications after they are essentially published in the Federal Register, but the review period could extend to 90 days. As of now, the Thursday's filings could essentially unpredictably impact XRP's prices as the digital token yet to receive the regulatory status granted to Bitcoin and Ethereum. XRP's price essentially is, in this scenario, that's going to do very well. What I will say is, before this is approved, before the filings for XRP is approved, the case needs to be dropped or settled. But if they approve an XRP ETF with the case not being dropped or settled yet, that's more of an indication the case is going to be dropped even faster if they approve the XRP ETFs. So the filings that have been done essentially, furthermore, the SEC could also overhaul the process related to redefining, essentially redeeming funds from existing crypto ETFs as acknowledged, and BlackRock's essentially proposal to enable in-kind creations of redemptions on their iShares Bitcoin ETFs as well. They also applied for one. But it's important to note that the SEC had previously refused to acknowledge applications for crypto ETFs tracking digital assets. But now, with a new chairman, acting chairman, things are different. So the SIBO to remove its previously uploaded 90B4 filings for those proposed ETFs, and the new ones have been refiled. Overall, Bloomberg Intelligence ETF analyst Eric said the SEC's acknowledgement was notable because it's the first time an ETF filing for a cryptocurrency was essentially looked into, or essentially was previously deemed a security, has been acknowledged by the SEC. What is referring to is that previously, under Gary Gensler's chairmanship and inside the SEC, no crypto project was looked into except Bitcoin, because there was suit to look into it by Grayscale. Essentially, the SEC was pressured to look into it. And essentially Ethereum, because again, they were pressured by Congress at the exact same time when Gary Gensler essentially accepted the idea of Ethereum becoming an ETF, but then take away staking from it, so it has nothing to bring to the table. Hence why Ethereum didn't really do too well in terms of, when their ETF was launched, because Ethereum had staking capabilities, but they couldn't bring that to the table because Gary Gensler wouldn't let that happen. That's why not a lot of money essentially entered into Ethereum's ETF. But all that aside, it's the first time Eric is correct. Eric is a Bloomberg ETF specialist analyst. Eric has been spot on all the deadlines. He's an incredible, intelligent man. Eric and James, they're both from Bloomberg. They're both ETF specialist analysts. And what he has stated is facts. It's the first time the SEC has acknowledged the fact that there are other ETFs in process, because Gary Gensler didn't even bother looking at the rest of the ETFs. So it's the first time, essentially they've looked into an ETF application that is being, essentially under the whole suing with the SEC. So he's saying this is great signs that the SEC is definitely on the correct path now, that they're looking into a filing of another ETF that they've not looked into before, and that ETF is still carrying on with the case. So just acknowledging it is incredible is what he's trying to say. So it definitely has changed. And now on the topic of essentially XRP, a startup funded by essentially Citi to launch XRP-backed securities. So if you didn't know, now you're about to know. So the Receptance Essentially Depository Corp, RDC, a startup founded by a group of former Citigroup essentially executives, is planning to launch an XRP-backed securities, according to people familiar with the matter. This will give institutions access to XRP securities through US regulated market infrastructure. The company will offer depository essential receptors similar to the American depository receptors, ADRs, that essentially represent foreign stocks on US equity exchanges. The product will be offered to qualified institutional buyers only via transactions exempt from the registration under the Securities Act of 1933. As such, it would not need approval from the Securities Exchange Commission, SEC. So the way they're going to be offering essentially XRP, these are former executive Citigroup Bank people, former executive Citigroup Bank people who came together, formed a company, and the backbone of that company is XRP. And the way they're doing it, essentially offering XRP only to institutional buyers, is through this loophole that is the Securities Act of 1933, where they don't even need a green light. They don't need a green light in any sort of way from the SEC. They can just start. Now, Fox Business has reported on this as well today. The securities will be cleared by the Depository Trust Company, DTC, similar to the RDC already existing offerings of Bitcoin and Ethereum-backed securities. Now, in a press release, back in January 2024, RDC founder and CEO said that they are using depository receipts and brings many benefits, such as a tried and true structure, providing direct ownership of the underlying assets and easing conclusion to institutional products. Several companies have taken steps to bring XRP to the institutional crowd, as the native cryptocurrency of Ripple's network has seen tremendous growth over the past year. And several asset managers have essentially applied for ETFs that essentially we got today and yesterday for XRP as well. The difference between an ETF and a depository receipt is that while shares in the potential XRP ETF would be redeemed for cash, depository receipts would offer direct ownership of the currency. So if an institution decides to go for essentially an ETF of XRP, they don't own the XRP. However, if an institution decides to go for a depository version of XRP, they own the actual XRP through them, which makes a lot more sense for anybody to do this. But they've essentially did all the filings. They've given it the green light. They don't need the SEC to give a green light. So they're going to start in about a few days or a week selling XRP to institutions. So if you didn't know that, now you know that. Now, on that topic of XRP's futures looking brighter and brighter by the second, all good things must come to an end, which they have now. So I just want to say, if you're watching this for the first time ever, this was the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. I go by the persona of Crypto Miles. I'm the host of this live that airs Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards. And if you're tuning this for the first time ever, on this live, Monday to Friday, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. So vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and what I say is only for entertainment purposes. And this is episode 258 of the CMF Live. So this is episode 258 of the CMF Live. So tune in for episode 259 on Monday. I will be seeing everybody on Monday, same timing as usual. Good night, Davey. See you on Monday, same timing as usual. Great job tonight, Miles. Let's go, Scott. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Thank you for the news and great live. JP, let's go. See you on Monday, same timing as usual. Good night, Miles. Thanks, Miles. And have a great weekend. Good night, CMF. Stormy, let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Fabulous live as usual. We thank you for your time. Joe, let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Thanks for always being prepared to share crypto information with us. The family appreciates you. Scott, thank you so much for the kind words. And see you on Monday, brother. Same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and great family live. Many thanks. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Let's go, Ian. See you on Monday. Same time as usual. Have a great weekend. Miles, see you Monday. Mickey, see you on Monday. Same time as usual. Thanks, Legend Night and Day CMF. Let's go, Shelly. See you on Monday. Same time as usual as well. Thanks for an amazing live, brother. Let's go, come on. See you on Monday. Same time as usual as well. Thanks. See you on next live. Let's go, Shakira. See you on Monday. Thanks, Miles. Have a great weekend, CMF. Let's go, Rafa. See you on Monday. Same time as usual. Excellent live tonight, Miles. Thanks, Miles. Have a great weekend. Let's go, Artistic. Have a great weekend as well. And see you on Monday. OG Miles is the legend. Congratulations on episode 258. Let's go, Scott. Miles, I need to check out the DMs. Thank you a bunch, Lena. I'll check out the DMs as well. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Share the live, comment afterwards. Let's go, Scott. Yes, definitely. If you're watching this for the first time ever, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. If you already haven't, like, comment, and share. If you watch us on X, follow, retweet, like, comment, and everything I provide is for the past 2.5 years has been completely free. And it's going to stay free source forever. So you can tune to this live Monday to Friday completely for free because I don't offer any paid services. Everything I do is completely free of source. For the last 2.5 years, I've been doing this. It's going to stay free of source forever. So we also have our own Telegram group, which anybody's more than welcome to join. It's completely free. It's an incredible place to be in. Everybody's very respectful. And we also have our own X communities page, the CMF X communities page, Cryptomass Family Lounge. Join it if you haven't. If you can't find a Telegram group, message me on X if you watch us on X, or comment on YouTube. I'll share the link on Telegram. So join the Telegram if you already haven't for this live. Join the X communities page. Follow me on X. Subscribe on YouTube. Comment, share, like, retweet. I'll see everybody on Monday, same time as usual, for episode 259. Good night, Miles. Great live. See you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Let's go free and further. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Congratulations again on episode 258. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. I love my family. I will see you all on Monday. Let's go, Scott. I'll see everybody on Monday, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a great night or a great weekend. I'll see everybody on Monday, same time as usual, 11:25 p.m. UK time. Miles is free, has always been free. Save the money you spend on other programs and invest in XRP. Let's go, Scott. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Miles is the GOAT. Let's go, Scott. Thanks so much for the kind words. I'll see everybody on Monday, same time as usual, 11:25 p.m. UK time. Follow, like, comment, share, retweet. Everybody have a great day or a good night or a great weekend. See you on Monday, same time as usual, 11:25 p.m. UK time.